Subscribe and like this video, more interesting revenge stories of elderly people coming soon.
My name is Woodrow. I'm 76, and I'm a ghost. Not the kind that scares children in the dark, but the kind that no one sees. I walk these streets like a shadow. People pass me by as if I were part of the landscape, an old tree that should have fallen long ago, but somehow still holds on. My house is on the outskirts. My late wife Alice and I built it with money I earned. Every board here remembers my hands. It's a little lopsided now, the paint's peeling, but I keep it in order. Not for anyone, for myself. My children are successful. Each has a business, a house, a trip. They call once a month, with a cold, "How are you, Dad?" in their voice. I say, "Fine." And they immediately say goodbye with relief. My grandchildren come over once a Christmas. One of them even brought me a smartwatch that I couldn't turn on. They laugh when I ask how it works. They say I'm so nice. I'm not nice. I'm forgotten. In the store, the salesperson speaks loudly, as if I'm deaf. In the pharmacy, the pharmacist patiently explains how to take pills, looking at me like a child. In the clinic, the doctor turns not to me, but to the nurse. "Look, this old man is here again. Give him something soothing, let him go." I thank you. For what? I don't know. For the contempt. For not having been completely forgotten about yet. Every day of mine is an exact copy of the previous one. At 6 o'clock, tea with lemon. Then I sit in my favorite chair, which has now sagged a little, with a blanket on my lap. The TV is muted. I no longer listen to the words, they are not mine. My hand automatically reaches for the notebook. There are my thoughts. Or rather, the silence that I write down in words. I am not alone. Loneliness is when you are not around. And I am here. It's just that no one sees me. It's not loneliness, it's erasure. And yet, something remains in me. Something that doesn't die. I don't know how to describe it. It's not hope, it went out long ago. It's not faith, it was taken away from me. It's a spark. A small, tiny light somewhere inside. It was quiet, insignificant. But I began to feel it growing. Every day that the salesman doesn't look me in the eye. Every day that my son doesn't pick up the phone. Every day that my grandson laughs, showing me how funny I hold the phone. The spark flares up. And with it, something dark. I'm not angry. I'm attentive. I don't forgive. I remember. And while they're sure that I'm nobody, I'm quietly preparing to become everything they fear. Once I held the sky for those who now don't even look at me. I remember how it all began, the late 80s, cold offices, the smell of dust and cigarettes. Everyone started something back then, but only a few survived. I survived. Not because I was the smartest. But because I was never afraid to fall. My first business was metal warehouses. Everything was based on my honest word and a shaky knee. One of the partners stole. Another sold a share. I was left with debts and empty-handed. But I didn't know how to stop. I only knew how to move forward. In the 90s, I transported goods from Poland, stood at customs for 3 days, slept in a cab, lost a few teeth in a fight with a racketeer, but I didn't lose the main thing, my name. They respected me. They listened to me. Back then, the word Woodrow wasn't a name. It was a sign. A brand. A guarantee. When Alice and I had nothing to pay for the heating, I sold my watch. When the children entered university, I took out loans secured by the house. When my wife got sick, I went around to everyone I knew to save up for surgery. I held everything. The whole world. Their world. I wasn't just building a business, I was building the foundation of their lives. The children went to good schools, had tutors, toys, new bicycles. They didn't know that I counted pennies at night to have enough for gas. And then everything became normal. The business stabilized, we bought a new car, and the grandchildren started appearing one after another. Everyone around us seemed to dissolve in comfort, and I was in the shadows. When everything was going well, they didn't notice you. They only remembered you when something broke. Years passed. They started asking me questions less often. Then they stopped altogether. "You've already done your job," they would say. "It's time for you to rest. Sit down, Dad." As if my life is over. As if I am a museum piece. An artifact of an era that is no longer needed. I did not ask for gratitude. I did not seek applause. But I remembered every moment when I chose someone over me. And here I am sitting in a chair. In the room where my Alice once laughed. The phone is silent. It contains the numbers of those whose businesses, careers, honors I have saved. They all live well. They are all somewhere. And here I am. I look at my hands. They have become thin, but they still remember how to hold heavy things. I look in the mirror, I see wrinkles, but behind them the same look is still visible. I do not want to return the past. I do not seek old glory. But I feel, everything I once had is not gone. It is simply waiting for its time. I am no longer the force that goes ahead. I am the force that stands behind. And they will still remember who I am. I've never been afraid of pain. Pain is part of the journey. You can endure it if you know what you're going for. But pain that doesn't come as a blow, but as a small, slow, quiet drop, that's what eats away. "Dad, I'm really busy, I'll call you back later," my son says. That later doesn't come for weeks. I remember when he was sick as a child, and I carried him in my arms to the clinic through the snow. I wasn't busy then. My grandson comes to me when his parents ask him to go see Grandpa, he's lonely. He sits in the chair opposite, doesn't take off his headphones, looks at his phone. "How's school?" I ask. Norm, without taking his eyes off. I ask him to show me how to connect Wi-Fi to his tablet. He laughs. "Oh, Grandpa, you're like a dinosaur." Ha. And looks at the screen again. I sat in line at the hospital for 4 hours. When I finally came in, the young doctor didn't even look at me. "So, what's wrong with you?" I started explaining about the blood pressure, the headaches. Yeah. Okay, now the nurse will take the old man." The old man. I silently gathered up my papers and left. Even though I had the right to stay. Even though I'd paid taxes all my life. But that doesn't mean anything. Last week I dropped a package on the sidewalk. The bread rolled toward the road. I leaned over, slowly, carefully, holding onto the bench. A young man in a suit was walking by. I asked, "Excuse me, could you?" He didn't even stop. He didn't even look. And I've helped people I've never known. I paid for medicine for a woman I didn't know because she was crying at the cash register. I took a homeless man to the hospital. It didn't cost me anything because I believed, good things come back. No. They don't. It is wiped away like dust from a windowsill. And each such moment is like a small prick. Small, but poisonous. These pricks accumulate. They create a map of pain. I started keeping a diary. Not of emotions. Events. Date. Name. Situation. Guy in the hospital, 09/14. Son, did not respond 7 times in the last month. Grandson, laughed at my request, October 1st. Neighbor, looked through me when I said, "Good morning." I do not complain. I record. Because every such little thing is not just pain. It is a reminder. Of what they think, I am no longer a threat. That I can be ignored like dust, like noise. But there are things that do not make noise. They grow in silence. And when enough accumulates, silence turns into a weapon. I have learned to wait. I am not a child crying for attention. I am a man who listens. And the more I listen, the better I hear lies, hypocrisy, weakness. They are all weak. They just don't know it yet. And I am still strong. Just different. And maybe that's why I'm not just recording events now. I'm recording strings. Because soon I'll start pulling on them. The day was gray. Just like any other. The wind carried plastic bags across the asphalt, the sky hung like a heavy lid. I went out to the store. My hands weren't the same anymore, sometimes they shake when I carry something heavy. But I didn't complain. I never complain. At the turn, a boy on an electric scooter hit me. I barely kept my balance, but I fell anyway. The bags flew. Tomatoes, bread, a can of coffee, everything on the asphalt. I lay there, trying to get up. Slowly. With dignity. But my body wouldn't listen. The boy didn't even stop. Instead, I heard laughter. 2 students on the bench were laughing. "Look," one said, "the grandfather collapsed. Let him lie down, who needs him?" Who needs him? That word, nobody, seemed to squeeze me from the inside. I don't remember how I got up. I don't remember how I got home. But I remember the moment I closed the door behind me. The silence in the room wasn't a void then. It had become a predator. I stood by the closet, looking at the old cloth that covered the safe that hadn't been opened for about 20 years. Slowly, like a ritual, I pushed it aside. The combination, August 19th, 12. The year my daughter was born, the month Alice died, the date the company was founded. My fingers remembered. Inside was a notebook. An old Nokia. Keys. A flash drive. I sat down at the table. I slowly opened the notebook. There were names. Passwords. Numbers that I had never saved in my phone. Relationships that seemed like friendships then, but now like leverage. People I had once helped emerge from the shadows. A politician I had whitewashed at the beginning of his career. A businessman who was on the verge of bankruptcy. The journalist whose daughter I saved by paying for treatment. They are all debtors. They just haven't realized it yet. I picked up the phone. Old, without the internet, without facial recognition. Perfect. Without a trace. I knew where to start. With the one who betrayed first. The son. I once transferred part of the company to him. He promised that he would never forget. Now this company is successful. But I know what it stands on. I know how much compromising evidence was hidden under a thick layer of silence. I called. Not him, to an accountant whom I had previously hired. "Hello. This is Woodrow. We need to talk. Remember 2013? Then another call. To the bank. To an old acquaintance in the press. Not with threats. No. Just a reminder. About old dates, old debts. I felt my fingers getting stronger again. My breathing becoming calm. I am no longer an old man in a plaid. I am the director of a play where everyone has long since taken their roles. They do not yet know that the stage is already lit. I will not shout. I will not break down the door. I am not a storm. I am a shadow behind it. They are still laughing. They are still sure that they hold the world in their hands. But I am already holding the strings. And the game has begun. It would seem that nothing has changed. I still drink tea at 6. I still sit in an armchair, with a blanket on my feet. The TV is off, the street outside the window. But now everything is different. Because now I am not silent. I act. I am not a grandfather. I am the architect of reckoning. When you build for years, when you manage businesses, people, situations, you do not forget how the lever works. You just do not touch it for a while. But hands remember. Memory is the most accurate weapon. I started small. One anonymous file, with a leak of internal documentation that compromises my son's partner. The second letter, to the anti-corruption department, with details of financial manipulations that my son hid for years through offshore companies. The data is accurate. There is no signature. A week later he is no longer the manager. Internal investigation. Doubts about transparency. A pause in public activity. And most importantly, his phone rings again. Often. Now he wants to talk. But I keep quiet. I've learned to control silence. There's a power in it that they don't understand. My grandson is my next move. He's a young developer who signed a contract with a large company. He flaunted it. But I forgot that in the adult world, your name isn't always clean. I remembered one programmer whose treatment I once paid for after a car accident. He works for that company. I sent him a video recording of my grandson humiliating a cashier while drunk. It never made it online. But I kept it, just in case. The occasion came. The contract was cancelled. Reputation tarnished. He texts me, "Grandpa, can I come over and talk?" You can. But I don't answer. Another time, the daughter of one of my former companions applies for a grant to a prestigious university. The committee's feedback is crucial. But one of the committee members is my debtor. He knows how I helped him 15 years ago. Now I've reminded him. My daughter doesn't get through. I don't destroy. I'm just bringing out what's already rotting. Their essence is weak, deceitful, hypocritical. I didn't create this crack. I just pressed where it hurts. My house has become alive. The silence here is no longer empty. It breathes. The tension in the air is like before a thunderstorm. The phone rings more often. "Son," says one voice, "Dad, how are you?" "Grandpa, I'll come, okay." They're looking for me. Because the shadow has become tangible. They can't understand who's behind this. No one remembers my name. But everyone is afraid. Because their world has begun to crumble, as if invisible threads are breaking one after another. I'm not going on stage. I sit in a chair, calm, even. But their every step is no longer confidence. It is fear. Because now, finally, they have begun to understand, I have not disappeared. I have simply become invisible. And the most dangerous predator is not the one that growls. It is the one that everyone thought was long dead. No one called me. None of them said my name out loud, because they were afraid of hearing silence in response. And silence, when you're afraid, sounds louder than shouting. After that, they started to appear. One by one. My son arrived first. The car stopped slowly, like at a funeral. He stood at the door for 5 minutes before he dared to press the bell. I opened it. Silently. "Dad. I don't know what happened. Everything's falling apart. I need your advice." I just stared at him. His eyes twitched, his voice cracked. Before me was no man who considered himself successful. Before me stood a boy who had forgotten who had had his back all his life. And now he stood without her, naked, vulnerable. I said nothing. I just stepped aside, and he walked into the house. Then my daughter. With his grandchildren. Finally, not with gifts, not with formality. And with looks that were full of shame. The grandson approached me for the first time not as an old man. "Grandpa. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I didn't forgive. And I didn't punish. Because true revenge isn't in destruction. It's in them seeing for themselves what they've become." I simply put up a mirror. They were all sitting in my house. For the first time together. Not for the sake of an inheritance. Not out of duty. But out of fear and shame. And something else, recognition. And I felt, the game was over. It wasn't a victory. Because there was no war. It was the return of a name. And a place. I didn't want them to fall. But they were going there themselves. I just couldn't hold it in. That night I sat down in a chair again. A blanket on my feet. A notebook in my hands. And he wrote the last, "Old age is not weakness. It is power, about which people are silent. Because it sees everything, remembers everyone. And it does not run, it waits. And the one who waits is always stronger than the one who runs away." Asterisk asterisk I closed the notebook. I put it on the shelf. Tomorrow will be morning again. Tea again. And, perhaps, silence. But no one will dare to call me, nobody needs me anymore. Because now each of them knows. I am. I was. I will be.